Hey, everyone. Hayden Barton, the Batman tradition. I'm back with an exciting video. Insightful video. At least I think it's insightful. But this video particularly came about, like all of mine do, through when I'm thinking about trying to do a video, what interests me at the time, or what sporadically is going through my head as far as this character goes, whether it's the future of him in pop culture, films, books, and, video games, or kind of what I see just going about social media or the perception of Bruce Wayne or things that I think maybe I have some sort of a input into said perception. And that's what this one's about. Primarily, it's about I've made a couple videos on the journaling of Bruce Wayne, right? And this is going to fall into that category a little bit differently, though, because it's not going to be about just how I feel journaling, because I started kind of with the inspiration of doing it off of Pattinson's Batman, which is still great. But this primarily is coming off of kind of how I see sometimes Bruce Wayne perceived on social media or through marketing or other realms outside of official marketing for a film or a game or anything like that, but just people themselves or companies that may have a partnership to be able to use the Batman and Bruce Wayne kind of license for their products or anything like that. And a lot when you see that, and I'm not trying to, attack anyone, or this isn't trying to say anyone's right or wrong in this conversation of how to use it, but I kind of often always see it used, particularly when it comes to brands, or say very popular right now on Instagram are sort of mindset accounts where they take the character of someone. I've seen it for James Bond, I've seen it for Bruce Wayne or other people, where it's said character's name mindset, and it's usually an account that gets a huge following, which is cool, and they basically always just create posts or reels about Bruce Wayne or James Bond or that character with some sort of quote, or post of vanity of Bruce Wayne pulling up in a fancy car or buying the hotel, or showing off kind of his power and success as a way to emulate Bruce Wayne or Batman. And the same with partnerships with clothing brands. They often use the Batcave from The Dark Knight with the lights. They love using that garage, or quotes from the Nolan films, or said Bruce Wayne showing off his money and power as far as success goes, to kind of promote themselves or use it as like, hey, this is Bruce Wayne, this is what he would do, this is how he is, you want to be like this, right? You want to have that wealth and that power and be able to do all those things, which everyone truthfully does. But where I'm kind of jumping into this to have a sort of a discussion about is, sometimes when I see those, I often kind of I kind of have a little issue with the fact that primarily they're always focusing on the vanity side of Bruce Wayne. And by that, I mean exactly what I just said, is that you always see them post the videos of Bruce Wayne basically putting on that persona, that billionaire playboy persona, that if, you're a Batman fan, is sort of not really Bruce Wayne. It's a fake version of himself. But that's what they gravitate to, because as Bruce Wayne knows, he has to put on this fake, larger-than-life persona to try to fool people and make it seem like he's, just this kind of idiotic, kind of non-caring sort of playboy that just does what he wants and doesn't have much care for the outside world or what's going on, with anyone else but himself. But everyone knows that's not true. And so when I see them always focus on that portion of the character, that's kind of where I kind of disagree with, where I feel like the marketing or usage of the persona of Bruce Wayne, where they get it wrong. Of course, everyone would like to buy the hotel or drive the cars, and I'm not, we can strive for that. That's cool. but I think deep down it puts off a wrong messaging of kind of really what makes Bruce Wayne and Batman special. Really, the sort of what I would say if someone was looking, looks up to this character, the true values and morals that he carries with him that I think are much more important than just focusing on, the things he can do when he's kind of playing the playboy persona. Kevin Conroy always used to say that the thing that people resonate most with Bruce Wayne is that he took something so negative and terrifying and awful in his life, and instead of becoming a victim or letting it defeat him, he chose to take that pain and use the power he has and put it back out in the world as love. He could just be that playboy. He could just not care and live a life that, just of fun and, that he just didn't care about the world. But that's not Bruce Wayne. That's not who he is. And I'd always argue that with these accounts always showing off the wealth and the fancy cars, if Bruce Wayne didn't have that wealth, if he didn't have the opportunity or his father's fortune from Wayne Enterprises, but those same events occurred and he was still the same person he is deep down, without the wealth and, everything of that, the opportunities that give him, he would still be the same Batman and Bruce Wayne. Now, it might be of different terms. He might not be known for the fancy gear and everything, but that mission and that person and his beliefs still stay the same with or without the money and the vanity, right? So with this, I kind of decided to, adding onto the journaling of Bruce Wayne, my 5 things I could think of that for someone like Bruce Wayne, if he were journaling and, people like to write down goals or things they're striving for, or maybe things to kind of keep them mentally clear and where they're headed in life, I wanted to think of 5 things that I think Bruce Wayne would jot down in his journal, whether it was every morning or maybe every month, or a couple things to kind of keep him linear in his goal that aren't vanity, or they're not just about, oh, I got to save the city, or, typical things. I think things more deep down that when he's, sitting in the cave or kind of alone and he's able to have that brooding conversation with himself, what he might kind of jot down to kind of keep him clear on the straight and narrow. And these are in no particular order of importance to least important. I really just sat down. I only did 5 because I felt like, you could think of a lot more, but it would just take too long and too long. So here are 5, starting with number 1. Number 1, make father proud and be true to yourself. Now, pretty much every iteration of Batman, really a thing that he strives for and Bruce strives for is he seeks his father or looks at his father in a lot of ways of emulation of being a good man, someone who cared about the people of the city, people who cared about, his employees, and really strived with his power to try to make Gotham a better place. And I think in every iteration at some point, Bruce Wayne really looks at his father as a goal of someone he wants to make proud and wants to follow in those footsteps. You see it definitely heavily in the Nolan films. You see it in BVS when he talks about his father and his legacy. And really, I think overall, that's just something that, and you don't have to resonate this with, oh, well, it needs to be my father. I think really, if you take away that, what I mean by it is that you kind of usually everyone deep in their heart has a clear vision of something they want to do or what feels right by them or kind of something that morally and ethically they would like to do that's true in their heart. And I think with that, staying clear to that deep down foundation of who you want to be as a person keeps you in check, keeps you steered towards the right path in life, or at least gives you the foundation to be like, this is who I want to be. This is what I want to try to be. This is how I want to act in my life. Now, how do I go forward to that? So Bruce Wayne's is to make his fathers proud. Now, then how does he go about that in business and life, his personal life as Batman altogether? And off of that, the be true to yourself factor of that also goes hand in hand with that, right? Because deep down, when Bruce Wayne puts on that playboy persona, of course he kind of can act like an idiot or sort of, maybe not obviously make it sound like he's not as smart or thoughtful as he is, but you never actually see him act out of character or ill will towards other people. It's usually just him himself, he's never rude to other people. He's never making a mockery of other people. He really, what I'm going to say is stays true to himself and does what he knows was right. No matter what happens, what the obstacle is, or how he has to achieve it, he's never going to sacrifice his soul to get what he wants. Deep down, he always, and as being the fearful, vengeance-driven guy, Bruce Wayne really does always follow true to his heart when he's on a mission, even if it takes a little bit of time to see him or it play out, because it always, doesn't always say it up front or face value. He really always stays true to himself and who he wants to be deep down. Number two on the list, your mental health is the key to your physical health and success. Now, when we take a look at Bruce Wayne, and what I mean by that is that everyone knows he's the epitome of physical human perfection. The way he runs, the way he performs, his athletic feats, he's trained himself to be like that. We all know that. But also with that power, everything falls apart if he's not mentally sound, right? Think about how truthfully when we see him at his lowest, it's never physically. Very rarely, other than when he, has the famous back-breaking Bane storyline. An injury, a physical injury, very often never really stops Batman from achieving his goal. But when he finds mentally that he has done himself wrong or others wrong that he cares about, or didn't do something truthfully to the best of his abilities and someone suffered for it, that's really when it shuts him down, or he has a hard time dealing with it, because he often holds most of his emotions deep down and doesn't express them. So then they just ponder and sit and get worse and worse as he ruminates on them. So for someone like Bruce Wayne, whether it was healthy habits like meditation, journaling, or, often he looks at Alfred to help him with these more personal feelings, mentally, when he has that in check and knows his goals, knows who he is, what he's striving about, and is honest with himself and mentally clear in his life, day, and goal and vision, that's when he physically is at his best. That's when he performs at his best. That's when he can be the pinnacle Batman that we all know and love, that fights for everything, pure and pure-hearted, and cares about his fellow man. And it all falls apart if he's not mentally clear and mentally sound. And so when we incorporate that into our own life, that resonates just the same with us as humans. And this might kind of be a little weird to understand, but physically everyone, when they look at Batman, might look at him as some sort of physical emulation of health and fitness. They want to look like him. Maybe they use him as some sort of inspiration, which is great. But over time, really physical training, over time, the physical act of it is the easiest part. The mental aspect of it is the hardest part. It's just like tying your shoes, exercising. If you do it enough over repetition, you don't think about it anymore. You just go do it, right? The hardest part with physical transformation, with exercises or change, is being mentally strong enough to know to do something at the intensity or sort of, I'd say, hardship that's going to create change. Lifting weights, you can curl something or lift a pound 1,000,000 times over, and eventually that's going to stop. It's going to get easy. It's going to become habit. You have to mentally be strong enough to know, hey, I can do this. I know I can. The physical act of curling a weight or picking up a weight isn't the hard part. It's mentally knowing that, well, for me to actually create the change, I have to pick a weight that is going to be hard and difficult enough and intense enough to actually force my body to change. Then it's not as easy, right? Then you have to mentally be tough and know, hey, this is going to suck, but I have to do it because that's what creates change. So with that in our lives, that's how we also can take an approach to ourselves, just like Batman does. When he went and decided to go out and become Bruce Wayne and travel the world, he went through all kinds of physical feats we read about, out in the snowy mountains, training with people, sort of learning every sort of medical procedures. But what's also always focused on, especially in the Nolan films, is his mental state. It's always about him conquering that fear in his mind, or pushing through mentally what's really bothering him. That's the hardest part for him. You see him learn the martial arts. You see him learn the medical procedures. You see him scale every mountain because that's Bruce Wayne. He will push to that brink. He will push through that mental barrier to get what he believes in his heart is real. And we can do that as well. So your mental health is the key to your physical health and your success. Now, number 3 does pretty much follow a lot off of what number 2 does, but it's about prioritizing your health. I'm not going to speak about this as some sort of generalization, but I think it's always phenomenal when we see people in sort of maybe the comic world, or let's just say the nerdy world, right, that do look at characters for some sort of physical inspiration. Now, I will say there's a factor between inspiration and following someone to a T, as far as, any sort of physical activity you do or mental activity you do is just because someone else does it. That part isn't particularly healthy, because what that person does was found out, or they found that out because that works out best for themselves. The key is eventually, in physicality, in health, in exercise, is to learn as much as you can and then find a way to incorporate that into your own life that suits you to the best of who you are, what you want to be, and where you'd like to be as an individual. But also, let's be honest, there's kind of a nerd stigmatism of people often aren't always in the best shape. Maybe they don't take care of themselves. I'm not saying that hasn't changed, but I think the stereotype of someone who might be a nerd kind of does stick. So I'd like to see a flip of that, of people, or maybe more of a promotion in this fandom of prioritizing your health, being proud about it. Talk more about how, if Bruce Wayne got you working out, or Batman did, or something like that, let people know. Let people know how you use that, or if they have a conversation, or they're curious about how you did that because they'd like to do that themselves, reach out to them. I made a 30-minute video, my last video, about how Bruce Wayne and Batman made me get into powerlifting and become a powerlifting champion. There's very, very strong power in this character, and a lot you can follow if you look and you're open to it. So prioritizing your health overall, is important, and it should always be important. And as you see, if you're a fan of the character and you read the comics or watch the games, you can see how important health is. His eating, his working out, and his mental, state is very important to Bruce Wayne. There's always the panels of him eating in the Nolan films, doing the push-ups, drinking the green juice, the training with Affleck, or there's always some sort of thing showcasing that he prioritizes his health and his eating. So as a fan, if you look at this character and really look up to him, he's your favorite, why not try taking some of that into your own life? Whether it's working out or finding some sort of physical activity, you enjoy or interested in and trying it out. It doesn't mean you have to go work out. It doesn't mean you have to go work like weightlift, but try taking out a portion of what Bruce Wayne does in his health and his life and his physicality, and maybe try incorporating that into your own life. You might like it, you might enjoy it, and deep down, even if you question it, you're like, well, Batman does this, so this is why I'm trying it out. 4, I really like this one. This is probably my favorite one I wrote down, and just because I think it's really my favorite aspect of Bruce Wayne and Batman. Now, maybe if I sat down and thought about it, there could be a couple, but really, this one I just love so much because I think it can kind of, what's the word? Encapsulate? Whatever, kind of a lot of one of my favorite things about Bruce Wayne. And number 4 was, don't abandon your life to fate. That line actually comes from in Arkham Knight, that father to son trailer where Thomas Wayne is speaking to Bruce and he's suiting up and he asks that he never leaves his city to fate. And when you really take a look at it, and I'm going to quote Batman and Robin, actually, a speech Alfred gives to him, and which, whatever, Batman and Robin. But this is actually kind of a good, beautiful scene in this, because Alfred speaks about how, death and chance took your parents, but rather than become a victim, you have done everything in your power to essentially fight that feeling of becoming a victim. You took everything, you took that heartbreak, you took sort of every possible easiest route you could have taken to abandon your life to sadness and grief and loss, and you chose to turn that around and do something great with yourself. Batman is all about not leaving his life to fate. There's a beautiful quote in BVS and The Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller book, where he says, the world only makes sense if you force it to. Batman doesn't wait for fate. He doesn't wait for, life to just let pass him by and see what the outcome is. Or he doesn't, just let people and hardship push him around. No, if he knows in his heart what he wants, what's the right thing to do, or something that he knows to change, he does everything in his power to take action right away of what he wants. So if you have a goal, if you have something bothering you, or something you're afraid of, it's only going to make sense if you force it to. Don't let yourself be abandoned to fate. Now, I'm 28 years old, and where I think this resonates a lot with me too is that I'm at least finding out, in these stages that, especially in your 20s, where you're trying to find out where you are in life, your place, what you want to do. Maybe you get a feeling of life's flying by too fast and, are you going at the same speed or are you falling behind? Really, the key to it, at least as I'm finding out, is don't let yourself abandon it to fate. If you want success, if you have a particular goal you're trying to set, whether it's, a happy family, wealth, successful career, a good, physically healthy, mentally healthy, it doesn't happen by you just abandoning your life to fate and letting the life just fly past you and waiting to see what the outcome is. It's only going to make sense. It's only going to happen. Those steps are only going to start to that final destination if you force it to. When Batman had his parents killed in front of him in that alley, what did he do? He didn't just sit and let life pass him by, everyone grieve for him. Everyone just, he didn't decide to become a victim and grow up normally. No, He forced himself to change. He forced himself to fight with everything in his power for that mission, for that belief he had after that night, to do everything in his power. He forced it upon himself for it to happen. Take that mindset with you. Try it out. I'm not always great about it, but I will say in the times I have, that's probably where I've had the most success, is when I look past every doubt, fear, or reason why I shouldn't do something, or basically kind of starting to feel sorry for myself about how, well, if only this could happen, if only someone would do this, or so and so would say this. It's not the mindset to have. You have to force the world to make sense for you, your goals, and your beliefs. So make the world, the only way to make, now I'm getting it messed up. The world only makes sense if you force it to. Don't abandon your life to fate. Batman, when he wakes up in business, working out, crime, anything he does is with clear action, clear intent, and with all the heart and effort in his soul. Because that's who Batman is. Try it out. 5, last one. Care for your fellow man. Now, maybe this is where I'm particularly how I spoke at the very beginning about how sometimes Bruce Wayne is used in social media, I think, for maybe the wrong purposes sometimes, because it's always about vanity of the fancy lifestyle and everything I said earlier. But, there's that beautiful quote from Amanda Waller at the end of Batman Beyond when she's speaking to Terry about what he just found out to be his father, Bruce Wayne, the cold-hearted man who always was about the mission and didn't care about who he hurt or what he sacrificed. He's talking to someone who has seen Batman from almost his earlier career, not always gotten along with him, had various issues and disagreements, but at the end of both of those two's life, she says that she saw him save the day countless of times with nothing but his wits, body, and will. And for all that fierce exterior, she has never seen anyone who cared more for their fellow man than Bruce Wayne. The most beautiful part sometimes about Bruce Wayne is that even with all that power, fame, notoriety, and opportunity, you're always going to see him taking care of the little guy, doing that act of generosity, doing that act of nobility or mannerisms, small and high. In BVS, you see him pay for taking care of Clark's wedding bill at the end of BVS, and he doesn't even mention it. You're always going to see him, in the animated series when Dick had that falling out with him. At the end, you find out that after that incident where he thought he was a cruel, cruel man, he actually offered that man a job and a way to help out his family and rehabilitate himself. Bruce Wayne's mission, as Kevin Conroy says, is to take that pain and bring it out into the world as love. He cares about his man. It doesn't matter that he's the billionaire playboy of a huge company and he's Batman. You're always going to see Bruce Wayne opening the door for someone, asking how, everyone's doing, even if they're the smallest guy on the street or the top CEO of a company. He's always generally doing what is right in his heart and taking away, stripping down who he is or what people might think he is or how he should act. He cares about everyone and is bringing out that world with that power, with that fame, with that wealth, an example to be someone who follows their heart and does what's right. And that's what I'd like to see more about from these companies sometimes. I'm tired of just seeing, yes, look at him buying the car. Wouldn't you like to do that? Look at him buying the hotel. Wouldn't you like to be like that? How about being a good person? How about being true to yourself and fighting for what you believe and sticking with a mission of morals and ethics to take care of people? Not because there's some sort of positive benefit or maybe some, repercussion at the end. Because gratitude reciprocates, but that's not always why you do it. How about just showing out that, like I said, without all that power and wealth, Bruce Wayne would still fight beyond his beliefs to what he thought was right. So maybe we should hope to see that pushed a little bit more. Bruce Wayne is a man. Bruce Wayne taking care of people. Bruce Wayne being kind. Trust me, I've worked with a lot of millionaires and a lot of successful people, and with all their power, with all their fierce exteriority, they're not like Amanda Waller says. They don't care about their fellow man. They don't care about being right to themselves or right to the world with that power. They generally just care about themselves, which is sad to see. So in a world of vanity and young men maybe aspiring to find out who they want to be in this life, how they want to act, how they, would like to carry themselves, Bruce Wayne's a phenomenal person to follow. I just hope we see a little bit more of that. Well, this has been Hayden Barton for the Batman Tradition. Take care.